Good morning. Man, I love you, Wayne, even though you're a Packers fan and you're in for a long day on Sunday at Dallas. It is time to skip the BS, something Aaron Rodgers seldom does. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But it is right now time for Undisputed, time for me to welcome in two guys who played with their emotions on their sleeves and on their knees and on their feet and on every single part of their bodies and their souls. Richard Sherman and Michael Irvin. Morning, gentlemen. How are we today?
Good morning, Skip.
Good morning, Richard.
Yeah. It's playoff week now, so everything is great. And you're right, Skip. It's time really to skip the BS.
It's time to skip the BS. Yeah. Okay. I'm just hoping both of you take it easy on me today, and I do promise to behave today. So, okay. After Sunday's win at Washington, Jerry Jones said he'd be evaluating Mike McCarthy one game at a time in the playoffs. I love that. Yet yesterday on his Dallas radio gig, Jerry clarified that comment by emphasizing he, quote unquote, couldn't be more pleased with the job McCarthy has done in his, of course, fourth season with the Cowboys. Of the reaction to Sunday night's comment, Jerry said, well, I was a little surprised. I don't know how I could be any clearer. Coach McCarthy's under contract for next year, and so that's not an issue. I certainly haven't sat down right here in the middle of the playoffs and started talking to him about something like a contract, something like that. Why would you do that? So Jerry is saying there obviously hasn't been any talk of a contract extension. Lord, I hope not, certainly not yet. But the questions still remain. If the Cowboys do lose Sunday at home to Green Bay, would Jerry still say afterward that he couldn't be more pleased with McCarthy? Would he still be, obviously, that McCarthy would return for the next year of his deal? Or would he fire McCarthy if they lose Sunday? Would he fire McCarthy if the Cowboys beat Green Bay and then laid an egg in a second home playoff game and fall one game short of their first NFC championship game in 28 years? These are all very good, very powerful questions, very now questions. Michael, please, you start us. What do you think of all of the above?
There is a lot going on in the National Football League right now. And what Jerry said when he said, hey, this is a game to game, you have to look at not just what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys, but what's going on around the whole National Football League. We are talking, and we will talk later on about a Mike Tomlin that's walking away. We're talking about a Mike Vrabel, a Bill Belichick. These are some of the great coaches that have coached in our league and in our game.
Yep.
The reality is this game has always been and always will be not just about winning, but about winning championships. That's what you get hired for. And all 32 teams. And yes, this is a stressful job. I tell people all the time, if you ask me the most stressful jobs in the world, I'll give you, at least certainly in our country, I'll give you POTUS as the top. But from 2 to 33 will be NFL head coaches.
Agreed.
That is the reality of it all. It's NFL head coaches. This is what it is. You perform under pressure. You carry the hopes of a whole city and a lot of people. So all of those hopes and all those eyes, they are watching you. And winning 12 games a season, that's great. But that's not winning championships. And in the National Football League, that's why you get hired. So saying it's game to game, that wasn't a Freudian slip. That was reality, and that's what it needs to be right now.
Thank you.
Yes, it is disastrous if you lose to Green Bay. It is absolutely disastrous if you lose to Green Bay. And if things work out great, Skip, Sherm, and say you get a Tampa Bay, even if you beat Green Bay and you get a Tampa Bay or
good
something,
point.
and you lose.
Yeah.
And you lose to Tampa Bay, and the Rams go and beat the 49ers, and you could have had a championship game in Dallas.
Disaster.
Oh, my God. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. It's not high. It's really bye. It's bye. That's the league that we are in. I don't want to hear this. I don't care to hear it. I don't want to hear from people like Sherm and Keyshawn, because all you guys want is more fodder. Oh, you still hadn't done it in 30 1 year. You're going to put the one on there. I don't want to hear. Pressure is good. Pressure makes the good fold, makes the great focus. Show me you're part of the great focus, and let's go get it done. And I don't want to hear, you created this pressure. If you'd have won in one of those other preseason situations, it wouldn't be this kind of pressure. In one of those playoff situations against the 49ers, we wouldn't have this pressure. You created it. Get yourself out of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I hear you, Irv, but I don't know. Jerry, this was unnecessary. This all was unnecessary. We talk about distractions with Aaron. This is an unnecessary distraction for this team. It's an unnecessary distraction for this coach. And you're going to put him in a situation where in a game where they're potentially trailing in a playoff game, things are going to cross his mind that maybe wouldn't have crossed his mind had you not said this. And he may make some desperation play calls. Hey, we need a big play here. Hey, we need to force it here. Hey, we need to go for it on fourth here, because if I don't, I'm getting fired after this game. So sure, the pressure is great. Sure, pressure is good for anybody. It helps. Pressure makes diamonds. Everybody knows this. But for the owner of the team to go out of his way to say, hey, we're going to take this evaluation game by game is ridiculous. And then for him to turn around the next day and walk it back or attempt to walk it back is even more ridiculous. We didn't say you were having contract talks with him. We didn't ask you anything. You decided out of nowhere to speak on this and then try to say, well, I didn't mean that. Yes, you did. Just stand on it. It's more ridiculous trying to walk it back. Just stand 10 toes on what you said, because that's what you meant. Like you said, Irv, this wasn't a Freudian slip. This wasn't an accidental speak. This was exactly what you meant, and it's the truth. If he doesn't beat Green Bay, if he doesn't take you to a NFC Championship game, he's going home. And I think he understands that. I think the whole team understands that. But I don't think it was necessary for you to say, and it's definitely not necessary for you to walk back. We know you're not having contract talks with him. But if you fire this head coach, he will be the lone head coach that got fired after taking his team to the playoffs. And he has your quarterback playing his best football of his career. And he has your team in a good position with the number 2 seed. There could only be 1 seed better. And they're tied with San Francisco for the best record in the NFC. So you can't even really make those arguments that he's not doing everything in his power. Sure, your team has lost big games. Your team has lost some games against some great opponents. I will give you that. I'm the one who stands on the table and says that, Skip. But come on, Jerry. That's enough.
Michael, you want to respond?
Well, I do, Skip, but I was giving you a chance to get in here.
Okay.
But there's so much in there that he left open that I do want to respond to, but I want to give you a chance to get in.
Okay, thank you. Look, Richard, we went back and forth about this yesterday. I'm even coming at it from a different point of view than Michael is as an ex-star player for this franchise. I'm lifelong diehard, started when I was 10 years of age. I know what it felt like to have my team play in 7 Super Bowls. I know what it felt like to win 5 Super Bowls. I covered the locker rooms of Coach Tom Landry, and I had the honor of covering the locker rooms of Michael and Troy and Emmett and Jimmy Johnson. And I know what that felt like. And those locker rooms, to me, had urgency to them because there was a healthy fear in those locker rooms, a fear of Coach Landry and definitely a fear of Coach Jimmy, because he rarely walked in the locker room, but when he did, everybody stopped what they were doing and mouths closed and eyes widened because everybody was afraid somebody might get sent packing. On any given moment, Jimmy might just cut somebody just to send a message to the locker room. This is not acceptable. With this team now for 28 years, no NFC championship games, there's been a lack of urgency. There's been a lack of accountability. There's been a lack of good fear, healthy fear in the locker rooms. And it starts with Jerry, who's not a dynamic leader in and of himself. This was the first time in Jerry's ownership without a Jimmy or without a Barry Switzer, when I thought he stepped up and did put 10 toes down and took a stand that needed to be taken to send a message not only to the head coach, but to the locker room of This will not be acceptable. I'm going game by game because we are now in a position to win 2 games to get to the NFC Championship game, as you say, Richard. And yet, Richard, yesterday you make the case that today's players, today's NFL, doesn't work like this, that players don't respond, coaches don't respond to this kind of pressure being exerted from the ownership down. And maybe you're right, but I know what I used to see in Dallas, what I've known worked in Dallas, and I believe it worked in Seattle with your team because you had dynamic leaders in the locker room. Again, I don't know if Pete Carroll factors into that exactly, but I know the Legion of Boom, you want to talk about strong personalities. I'm not sure we have strong enough personalities in the locker room, including the head coach and including the quarterback. So we need an urgent message sent that it is now time. Nothing is acceptable except winning at home, where you've won 16 in a row, beating the Green Bay Packers and then maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and getting back to an NFC Championship game. That's all I'm saying. Michael, please, you respond now.
Right, and I do want to explain this. First of all, when Sherm jumped in and I talked about all the things that are going on outside of the Dallas Cowboys with those guys that are being let go, there's also a guy inside of the Dallas Cowboys that they need to make a decision on, or they will be making a decision, and that's Dan Quinn. You know, so if you want to say, hey, can you get me over the hump? If you can't get us over this hump, do we go in another direction? Dan Quinn is looking and waiting right now to see what's going to happen. Also, with his team and with that head coaching job, his name been thrown in and linked with Carolina and other places. So he's going to sit back and say, let me wait to see what happens here. And Jerry needs to make sure that Dan Quinn, if he got the head coach in the building, that he doesn't let him go out the building. That's why it's on the hot seat for Mike McCarthy. But also guys, this comes down to we talked about it. Nobody has ever done this before. Nobody has ever won a Super Bowl with one team, then come over and coach and win a Super Bowl with another. This is an opportunity. Mike McCarthy, this is an opportunity to put your name up with the greats right here. You know what I'm saying? And I called it out. I started by calling out the top of the football team. I have no problem with Jerry Jones calling out the top of the coaching staff. That's the harmony you need in that locker room right now, Skip, Sherm. Everybody understands the pressure of this game and bring it to bear in that game.
I'm going to go take it step by step, and I'm going to start with Skip and his locker room leader situation. Skip, these are the guys you're going to have. So I know what you're talking about, Tom Landry, and everybody had fear. There's no fear in that locker room, and there's not going to be. And there's not going to be anytime soon. CeeDee Lamb is going to get $30 million soon. Micah Parsons is going to get $35 million soon. Dak Prescott's going to get another contract soon. You're going to have to pay Tyler Smith plus probably close to $20 million a year. Okay. So things are going to start to happen in that locker room that affect everything. But it's not going to be fear. It's not going to be fear. So it doesn't matter if Mike McCarthy's the head coach, Dan Quinn's the head coach, Ben Johnson's the head coach, Bill Belichick's the head coach. There's not going to be fear. Fear is not the way you motivate these days. I'm sorry. It's not. Fear is not the great motivator. And it hasn't been the great motivator in a long time. That's why you haven't seen a lot of these coaches have the kind of success that coach in that fashion in a really long time. That's why you see more coaches get younger and younger and more hip. You see guys like Mike McDaniel getting jobs and having some success. You see Andy Reid kind of changing his style of coaching, because that's the way you get the most out of guys, not putting the fear of death in them that, hey, if you don't do it my way, it's the highway. Skip, you got to remember the last time the Dallas Cowboys were in the Super Bowl, these Tom Landry years, the internet didn't even exist. Skip, so you talk about things changing. A lot has changed since then. The entire world is connected.
But he also talked about leadership in the locker room. And the fear that can't come from the head coach has to come from the guys that are leading in the locker room. The guys that are saying, hey, man, we worked too damn hard to build this to where it is, to let people like anybody that's not coming in and working out and working at the level that we are working, you got to pack your damn toes and get out of here. And I don't care. I'm talking about the guys in the locker room. You have to be the ones that say, hey, man, we could be boys. We can be friends, but you can't help me win. You got to go, and you can't play here. That's the kind of fear you got to have if you're going to do something great. We watch The Last Dance. We talk about how Michael Jordan get on people. Okay, you can't get on people like that if you're the head coach. But I can make you understand. Like, hey, dude, we do it one way around here, and if you're not doing it this way, you're not going to be accepted around here. You can get that leadership in the locker room. There's a sense of urgency they can pull out in that locker room that I need Dak to pull out. I need CeeDee Lamb to pull out. I need Michael Parsons to pull out. I need Tyron Smith. I need all of them like minor men, like little managers of their department. You get the offensive line going. Michael Parsons, you get those linebackers going. CeeDee Lamb, you get those wide receivers going. You can put this kind of pressure. It just has to come from those players.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
But
Richard.
Those aren't the kind of guys you got, Skip. Those aren't the kind of guys you got. Hey, that's the difference. You talked about our teams in Seattle. Yeah. Those are naturally the kind of guys we had. Marshawn is a very natural leader. He's a very charismatic guy. He's a guy that guys respect and guys will follow. Doug Baldwin the same way. Jermaine Kearse, Cam Chancellor, of course, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner. I mean, you can go down the list.
Richard Sherman.
Mike Bennett.
How about Richard Sherman?
Right. Richard Sherman works too, but it's just that you can't artificially create that. It's either they have it or they don't. You have great players. Great players don't necessarily make great leaders. You have great players in Micah Parsons. You have Dak playing great football, but Dak may lead a different way than other people. He may not lead. It just may be by example. So CeeDee Lamb, the same way. So if you don't have those vocal leaders, then maybe it does need to come from your coaching staff, and maybe it comes from Dan Quinn. But at the end of the day, you can't force that.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, do you think Jimmy Johnson would work in today's NFL?
I think Jimmy's a psychologist. He understands, and that's what separates, I think, Coach from a lot of these coaches. You see Coach now doing the pregame shows and everything. I don't know if Bill Belichick can transition to that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Jimmy knows how people, he focus and he studied how people think, So I believe Jimmy can transition in today's game and still, in his own way, put pressure, because that's just the reality. You got to put pressure. What's going to happen in the last 2 minutes of a game? You're going to feel pressured. So all of this situation, let's make sure they don't feel pressured. Let's make sure they just have it like that's not going to happen in a game like that. Yeah. So we need to create it here off the football field so you get used to it. So when it happens on the football field, you're used to it. It's your expectations. That's what create pressure. The expectations that are there. Teams, before you put a championship on the table, you have to put one on the table. That's the pressure of the National Football League.
Yeah. Okay, so, Richard, back to you. 12-5, as Michael pointed out, it means nothing to me. Leading the league in offense, in points scored, means zero to me at this point because it just doesn't matter anymore. Now matters. It starts right now. And I look back at 12-5, and how many mornings did Michael and I have to come in here and take the abuse from you and Keyshawn over what happened at Arizona, the egg we laid, what happened at San Francisco, 42-10, that thing that happened, what happened at Buffalo, what happened at Miami, what happened at home against Detroit when we lost the game. We effectively lost it, and the referee took us off the hook. So we should have lost 3 straight games. We did not play well enough to beat Detroit at home, in my opinion. I think Michael concurred. And yet, because Philly fell on its face masks, all of a sudden we stumbled backward into winning the East. And all of a sudden we sort of stumbled backward into, oh, wait, we're the 2 seed? And all we had to do was go take care of business in Washington. And Michael and I both thought they played great at Washington, albeit against a pathetic team that was just fighting for its last life with obviously Ron Rivera as an arch rival of the Dallas Cowboys.
But they felt the pressure. But they felt the pressure of this road, of these potholes in the road that they needed to get filled. And they played better. They played much better.
Okay.
I got a question for you guys. Because I don't think I think you see one side of the coin. Hey, they don't make the right decisions, then fire McCarthy and everything is better. How often have you seen a coach get replaced and the team improve? How often have you seen a coach get fired, and the next coach come in and improve that team and take them further the next year?
The
Rarely.
next year, the very next year?
The very next, because you think your expectations are going to change next year? Or are you going to lower your expectations for another coach for a couple years?
Didn't the Dolphins do it when they got Mike? Didn't the Dolphins do it when they found that coach?
Did they get better? Flores had a winning record. They won 7 in a row, his last 7.
They did.
And then they were fine, but I'm just saying it's rare that a situation you have the number 1 offense. It doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get better than that. Your defense is top 5. It rarely gets better than that. So you're saying, hey, let's replace this coach, because if you don't give Dan Quinn the job, he's gone. He's going somewhere else, whether he's going to be a coordinator or he's going to be a head coach. I don't think he returns to Dallas if he doesn't have the head job, because why would he? Why would he deal with the turnover? So you're potentially losing most of your staff. I would guess Al Harris gets a head coaching shot or interview at least. He'll definitely get a defensive coordinator job if he doesn't get a head coach look. So you'll start to lose key pieces, and you'll say, hey, well, let's replace everybody. So now your team will be worse. So now you're saying, hey, we didn't win the Super Bowl, so let's get rid of everybody. Now it's going to get worse. That's how you end up in the cycle that you guys are in.
All right, I'll answer with this. Go ahead, Michael.
Right. No, Sherman. And Sherman, let's get back to this, because the reality is the Dolphins did get better with Coach McDaniels coming in. Now, even with Coach McDaniels coming in, even when you start talking wins, it wasn't just about wins. It was also about developing a young quarterback. Remember, they were rotating in quarterbacks and all of that they went through. Now he has made this. Not only he has developed that quarterback, he has developed a system that's going to work in Miami for quite a while now and is given to her that career. So, yes, he has made it better. I understand the premise of what you're talking about, but the reality is this. Yes, the number 1 offense, it was the number 1 offense under Kellen Moore. So are we going to get all of this to Mike McCarthy? You see what I mean? We were working the number 1 offense even before Mike McCarthy took over the offense. He took over a number 1 offense and kept it a number 1 offense. So tell me what's great in what he did.
That's easier said than done. Dak Prescott has had his best year of his career. CeeDee Lamb has exploded on the scene, number 1 in a number of categories, and the way they've used him is very unique. But I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying, but you don't want to be sitting here next year with a fired coach and y'all at a 500 record or something, because when I tell y'all I told you so.
Here next year listening to y'all jibber jabber bibber babble about how long we done been through this. That's what I don't want to be sitting here next year. Listen, that's the reality of it. That's what I'm sick of sitting here listening to this every year.
Yeah, Richard. Let's just do the hypothetical. What if Mike McCarthy gets fired and somehow Jerry hires Mike Vrabel? Do you think the Cowboys would be a little better next year? Because I do. I think he's a little better football coach than Mike McCarthy.
They'd be worse, because who is he going to hire as his offensive coordinator? Their offense in Tennessee was pedestrian.
Yeah, we have enough pieces on offense, it would not matter.
Right. You keep the staff together, when the offensive staff, some of that together. Without Mike, you can.
That's not really how it works. If people come in, they hire their buddies. That's Vrabel's going to bring in his guys, and that'd be the problem.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of Mike Vrabel,
we gave Mike Kellen more. We gave Mike Kellen more. We can, I'm just saying.
Can you believe that Tennessee fired Mike Vrabel? I can't. We debate next.
Me neither.
No mercy. No mercy. No mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.